bank. Window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when I'm getting to the back. Ayy, got the foot on the gas. Pedal to the metal when the lane moving fast. Ayy, ayy, let them all cross. If they hate, then let them hate and make a bigger boss. Ayy.
This episode is brought to you by SPI Logistics, the premier freight agent logistics firm in North America. For over 40 years, SPI has been diligently building the most successful freight agent network to provide first-class relationships for our shippers, receivers, and carrier partners. We are more than another transportation network. We are a dedicated team of professionals united by one singular purpose, and that is to expedite our agents' success. All of our agents are set up for success on day one, as they are provided with a full suite of support staff that is ready to assist them with everything from after-hours emergencies to financial and administrative needs on a no-fee basis. This way, you can focus on continuing to grow your business. There is no financial risk to start, and you have the ability to earn up to 75% in commissions. If you are looking to take control of your financial future and build your business with the backing of one of the most successful logistics firms in North America, visit www.spi3pl.com to learn more. Do me a favor and let them know that the Freight Coach sent you.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It's the Freight Coach Podcast, the top podcast in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines. But most importantly, you guys provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. This is your first time tuning in. Welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I do say that before every single show. And what I mean by that is I only speak with transportation professionals, because at the end of the day, you guys, I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. Happy Monday, everybody. I got a very special guest for you guys, and I'm going to bring her up right away. You guys, I'm always looking at how do I forecast out in my business, right? When it comes down to pricing, delivering more data to my customers as there's more and more data that's readily available. I want to look at things from different angles as I'm prospecting shippers, my current customers that I'm working with inside of my brokerage, to just bring a different angle, right? Because I think it's very evident that the tried and true method of, hey, we can find you trucks, is just not going to cut it in today's day and age. So I got my friend Crowley Gunby with Transfix on the show today. Crowley, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm super pumped.
No, I am too. You know, it's like I wasn't always the biggest believer in data, because I was so like shoot from the hip for the majority of my business, right? And like early on, and when you build a book of business off of the spot market, truck in hand, last minute, it's really tough to like change that thought process as you're going to like build and scale out there. And, you know, it's like, I just look at it, especially with today's day and age, there's so much data, there's so much information out there. How do you take it and apply it to your business to have it tell a different story? Because you can sell a message all you want, but to have data to back it up, I think like it's a whole other layer out there. But before we get into any of that fun stuff, Crowley, how'd you get your start in freight? What brought you into the transportation industry?
The economy. I had graduated college when the economy was not super strong in 2009, and I had a degree in art history. So there wasn't a lot being invested in arts and education. But what there was in Jacksonville, Florida, is headquartered is Crowley Maritime, and they were hiring an inside sales. So I had started there and spent about 7 to 8 years in supply chain and sales and in different parts of what Crowley did, from ocean to understanding warehousing, pool point distribution. And then the last couple of years spent that time in the brokerage department.
Okay. So what's been some of since you've been around the industry for a little bit here, like I have, I think that there's almost a false sense of how getting customers is today compared to like how it used to be out there. So like, what are some of those tried and true methods that you've experienced, Crowley, that have like never gone away from like a business development standpoint and kind of like a relationship standpoint with shippers?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it is when you have the shippers, it's very heavily relationship based. I do think that, I think some of the tried and true things is it doesn't happen overnight. The old school methods of understanding your shippers, understanding their network, doing everything you can. Now you have, podcasts and all these other resources and conferences and such where shippers are talking about their networks and are a bit more open about it, especially post-COVID. And so I think that just understanding where they are, how to get there, utilizing that in your outreach, understanding that sales cycles, I imagine they're the same with shippers. I haven't sold to a shipper in a little bit, but they're not short. They've always been a long time, and they've taken a lot of work and a lot of investment. Building a rapport and trust is really the most important thing.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't matter the industry or what you're going after. I think like the core fundamentals of trying to develop business are very interchangeable across any industry out there. And, it's like, and that's why I always talk about the fundamentals on this show, because I feel like at times people try and think that there's another way, there's a shortcut, there's an easier way. I need to say this out there. And they're just looking to, remove prospecting and just go straight to profit, right? Like they think like, oh, I started this business, or I'm a sales rep for this company, I should just be making millions of dollars a year right now. And I think like it's kind of evident in your pitch when you're going out there. And this is why I always focus on the fundamentals and like really choosing a niche and building out a book of business based on that, or a brokerage entirely based on that. I mean, the most successful companies I know in this industry have like legitimately one core service offering that they sell on. And then they have some other service offerings that they can rely on for existing customers. But the majority of them, the ones that seemingly are kind of out of the headlines more times than not, are doing one thing better than everybody else. And they stick in there and then they grow that out. And I mean, that's just something that we've applied inside of our business here. I mean, we're 2.5 years in from a cold start brokerage, and we've grown year over year over year by a core strategy. And that message resonates with people in a down market when you're going out there. And it's like, I almost get more like, I almost have to like rehammer the fact when I'm calling these prospects for the first time, like, no, I don't want your LTL. Like, I don't care about that. Like, this is why I'm calling you. And they're like, well, and it's like, they're almost confused because like they naturally build up that guard and they're like, wait a second. So you're not calling and saying you can do everything? No, I'm not at all. And here's why, because it's like, I look at it is when you onboard a shipper in any market, not all the time, but the majority of it, you're starting in their spot market. You're starting in their last minute, oh shit style of freight where they're like, oh, hey, you've been telling me, can you get me a truck? And you got to be able to lock in that price for them quick. And then I think like one thing that we do really, really well internally is we keep the same rate, right? Like I don't every single time they come to me like, oh, I need you to be at this today, knowing that the market might be a little higher. I try and go long-term with that. And, when you guys switched, cause you guys have rebranded and everything here over the past years, and you guys are very much on like the rating side of things now, Carly. So like, how has that transition been? And then like, what are some of those things that your customers are telling you guys now in this market that we're operating in?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously been a really big pivot. We were a broker, and the biggest pivot for us was brokers don't want to buy from other brokers, especially when it comes to information about pricing and stuff that's really critical. And so the biggest thing was kind of like going to market and telling everyone like, we're not a broker anymore, but we're going to rely really heavily on our experience, because most of the shippers you're prospecting, most of the shippers you're working with, we have experience working within them. And we have experience within the models and building everything out. And so we were a brokerage last year. We divested our operations and the team, solely the operations, to NFI. We went to market with a number of modules. Some of them were more like built-ins to TMSs, kind of like an accept reject management, scheduling. But the market had an overwhelming response to pricing, especially where we met last year at Technovations. I had gone on stage and kind of did a fast and furious review of all of our offerings, and anyone who came up to me afterwards was like, tell me more about the cost models, tell me about pricing. And so you go where the market calls, right? And it kind of goes to what you were saying earlier. Like, we wanted to really find ourselves in a place that we had experience and that we could put all of our focus on, and so that we could build that trust with models. And so that's what we're doing today. We've built an entire UI that supports it. We build each of our brokers a unique custom cost model for both spot and contract. And then it comes with an RFP solution tool. And so they can upload their RFP. They can do it through a template, or we have smart upload where we use an LLM in the background to match a couple columns. You could take the shipper's RFP, upload it in there. Based on your forecast, based on your cost, because again, we're not giving you a market index rate. We're looking at your cost. We're giving you an understanding of where your cost lies throughout that contract period. So you have visibility to understand what's it going to take to hold that rate for a shipper. When do you expect the market to shift? What's the numbers that you expect? And then you guys can come together as a plan. And then beyond that, our most recent iteration is award management. Now you can understand how much has been awarded versus tendered. How are you performing? If you got really aggressive on that RFP because you thought you'd buy better, are you? And if you're not, what behaviors are driving that? And what behaviors do you need to work towards to find those costs in order to find yourself back to where you had planned to be?
I think that from my seat, in kind of based on what I see in the market, I think that with the rise in pricing like options that are out there, Carly, I think there's going to be more of a push for real time like rating. And I think like I'm not saying that this is going to happen tomorrow or anything, but I think like it's going to almost, I don't want to say entirely disband the RFP, the standard RFP process the way it is, but I feel like it could get to a point with the amount of data and like how LLM, large language models, AI, all of that is operating. I think that we're going to be able to compute and spit out data and get so smart with how markets are shifting. And what you're talking about right there, Carly, is what made me think of this, of like, hey, how do you get ahead of a market shift before the market actually shifts? How do you go and get in front of it? Because I feel like that's what customers are ultimately going to require. They're going to require almost a real-time pricing and the way that things could shift. And again, this might be pie in the sky. I think like you could get an RFP down to like a 30-day process. And I feel like the way that data can spit it out, you can run 10,000 lanes in like a minute is what it will eventually get to. And I think like that's the way people need to start thinking about freight pricing. And it's going to come to a point where every shipper out there, it does not matter if they move one shipment in a month or 10,000 shipments in a day, there is going to be a way to compute all of that in like nanoseconds, and they're going to be able to run a tighter operation out there to bring the most effective price that is going to be needed to move that freight. And I don't know, it could be me just completely missing the mark here, but I feel like that's where things could get to.
I mean, they're mostly already there. I mean, a lot of TMSs on the shipper side have real-time rating, right? Where they're looking for like, here's a contract rate, but what's that rate today? And, what is that comparison? We like through our platform, our tool prices any of your any contract lane in under 3 seconds. So a large RFP is done within a short amount of time. And so we're already there. And if you don't have an understanding of where your market is going and where your cost lies against the market, it's going to be really hard to make those strategic decisions. And then to also hold your word to that shipper. Something I'm actually going to quote you. When we met last year, and we had first told you a little bit about this pricing tool that we had and that we were building, what you said to me is, it takes the emotion out of things. And that has stuck with me for the last year, right? Like there's so much time, where RFPs and pricing is, it's taking a spreadsheet, it's sending it to a couple different people on your team. Everybody's looking at the data that's asynchronous. They're not looking at the same data sets. And then you have somebody who's like, no, I know I've been burned by this lane. I don't want it. We can't do it. When actually the data tells you can, it's just for this amount, right? Or you have somebody else who's like, I know I can do that better than that rate. I know I can. Let's get super aggressive. That's a huge risk. If the data doesn't present it, then you get to have those conversations about whether you're like willing to put your eggs in the data or you want to put it in your employee who's proven themselves time and time again, right? It allows you to kind of take that emotion out of it, put it to the side, and look at both sides of it when making those decisions for your RFP. Yeah,
I sometimes do say some really good stuff out there.
You should have a podcast.
I know, right? But I will say this, that has been one of my biggest challenges in business to overcome is stop letting it affect my emotions, right? Because it's like one thing, and again, I will openly admit I don't have it all figured out. I far from it. I am figuring it out as I go. And I look at it as the majority of the time that I didn't trust my gut and I let it ping pong ball in my head about what to do, that has caused more turmoil in my probably my life too, than just like trusting my gut and then like trying to remove that emotion from the decision, because it's tough to do that though, as a sales rep, as a founder, as somebody who's going out there and building something, because like you literally have invested everything, blood, sweat, tears, as they like to say, into this to work. And then you're faced with the position or a decision to make, and you don't want to make it because that's your baby, right? Like that's your child. And you know that like if it doesn't work out, it could be catastrophic to that. But that's what I love the most about technology. That's what I love the most about AI and where things are going is like you get to train it. And I want it to make it a Chris Jolly on steroids who doesn't wake up and feel anything. I want it to be emotionless, and I want it to be decisive in its action. Yeah. And I want the person, the sales rep, to go out there and communicate that, right? Like I don't want to automate that, but like some of those internal decisions, I want an emotionless decision to be made in the moment so we can move forward with our business. Because I think most individuals out there, Carly, can definitely think of a time or 10 when they let their emotions get the best of them, and then they became indecisive. They didn't make a decision, and then they lost something due to their indecisiveness.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I mean, the goal of the platform that we built is, yes, it's to help you understand your costs. Yes, it's to kind of give you an understanding where we believe the market is going. Where do you stack up against that market? How well are you buying? But it's just to give you all of this data. Mm-hmm. Because every brokerage is unique, right? We kind of like joke around that every brokerage is its own little snowflake, right? Like they're an individual, they all operate their own way. Everybody's goals are really different. So the goal is like, we're giving you the data set with your business so you guys can make the decision that's best for your business. If you say we're going after volume, we're going after margin, we're going after revenue, it's changing week to week. Like you'd have the data and the understanding to pivot and be as nimble as you need to, or to stay steadfast in what you believe is the right decision. That's what we're doing. We're not telling you how to operate your business. We're giving you all of this in a platform. We're giving you a reporting suite so that you can make smarter decisions based on where you want to go with your business.
And I think that as things continue to progress out there, because, when it comes down to like forecasting, for example, I think that there's, most sales reps out there think all business is good business, right? Because like when you're out there developing business, it's few and far between. So the one who are actually selling, the ones who are actually being honest when they're posting on social media will be the first ones to tell you it is very hard to get business out there, let alone business that you can grow and scale with. That's an entirely different sale at that point. And, there is that time where you need an unemotional forecast and data to tell a story. Is this customer actually worth it? How much time are you investing compared to how much you're actually making? And I understand, yes, you got to add value. You got to do all of that stuff. But like, it doesn't say NPO above my door. I am not a non-for-profit organization. I am here to make money. I am here to grow and scale and hire people. And I need to look at every single customer that you work with and like, hey, are we just working with these guys for the sake of working with them? Or are we actually making money on this account year over year? And sometimes you kind of get caught in the weeds where you're lost in potential, right? Oh, they have so much potential. Every sales rep out there, every prospect they talk to, oh, these guys got potential. They're going to be huge. And then you get in and you start moving a lot of freight with them and you're like, dang, we actually break even or make $5 on every single load. We're doing a lot of work for no money. And you need something to be able to tell you that.
Yeah. I can't even tell you how many times I've lived on both sides of the coin, right? Like when I first started with Transfix, I was an individual contributor and I was doing sales. And then I ended up like managing the sales team. And then I was over account management. But through all of that and all of those different roles, I worked with pricing. And so I can't tell you how many times I was like, guys, you gotta see the long-term vision here. We got to get in. We'll get spot. We'll capitalize on spot, or, we'll grow the business here. But I didn't quite have, we were still, when I first started Transfix, we were kind of developing this portion out. But then when I was over account management, we'd had the understanding, we had the models to see here's where our cost lies. And it's actually funny. The behaviors from sales change a bit more when they're not comped on just revenue, but they're also comped on the actual profitability and margin that it brings in, right? Like it's a totally different story when you're looking at, your cost of acquisition and your cost to cover when you're looking at those different pieces. And so it's part of what we had built out, because the life cycle of a customer, the life cycle of a load, it's touched by all these different people, right? It's sales, it's the carrier, it's pricing, it's the carrier side that has to cover it, it's the account management side that's like the unsung heroes and has to grow the business, right? There's a say from each of them. And so when we had put this idea in motion, we had built it as kind of this multi-tenant platform so that you can give visibility to any of those people on an RFP. You can tag people, you can create workflows. So I can say, hey, carrier, can you call carrier XYZ and see if they would hold this rate for 6 months, or what does this look like? Account management, do you see this? On these 3 months, it's going to go red. We have 6 months to plan on how we're going to get around that. Let's put something in motion now. Let's see what that looks like. Because if sales is selling you the dream and the vision, they've got to be part of the solution, right? They've got to be part of understanding how do you get them to the green? What does success look like internally? What number do you guys need to hit? And you have the data, you have it all in front of you. Now it gives you the time to kind of formulate the plan, all the way down to like, if you win the award, managing the award. And then we've got routing guides and other things within the tool itself too, to kind of help with the carrier utilization point.
Yeah, I think that, what you brought up there is, most people are going to probably overlook that, Carly, but it's like looking at that trailing 12-month data set of like, hey guys, you are going to probably break even and lose money. And like, most people have never worked in like a normal freight market before, where there's seasonal spikes and everything out there, capacity tightens, you got to lose money. I know that's a tough pill for a lot of people to swallow when they've only made money on freight. When that happens, you need to be able to see, right? Like, hey, over these last 12 months, hey, look, May, June sucks. We're going to break even. We just got to service the account. September, October, same story. That goes on out there. But these other 8 months out of the year when we're making money, this is why we are the way that we are with this account. And it just tells a story out there, right? And it helps, again, remove that knee-jerk reaction of like, 60 days of breaking even on an account, and you're like, we don't want to move this freight anymore. We've moved 100 loads. We haven't made any money, yada, yada, yada. And then my thing that I always like to tell people is nobody complains when they make $500 on a load. Why are you complaining when you got to break even to service an account in a couple of rare instances throughout the year,
Yeah, I also think a big part of that is like the volume, like how the volume distributes through the RFP, right? That's where it matters. Like, where do you, if you're taking on the chin for 10 loads in January, that's totally different than for 50 loads in January, right? And so that's kind of also what our team and what our tool takes into consideration is if you can get the volumes from the shipper, even if you have an out of cycle RFP or an opportunity to lock spot to contract, we give you that option to talk to your shipper a bit more. Say, hey, tell me, this is out of cycle. How many have you shipped year to date? How many do you see coming? Do you have end of quarter spikes? What does this look like? You can put those different volumes into the tool itself, and it'll help you understand where your margin lies within those months. And that's also a big part of it too. It's you can go red for 10 loads and it's fine, but in 3 months from now, when you have 100 loads and you're in the red, that's a different conversation than do we break even or not? That's a lot harder, right? And so also having that volume distribution, understanding where you lie within that seasonality is super telling.
What are some of those realizations that some of your users have had about their data? Have they came to the conclusion like, hey, our data is not as strong as we thought it was, or maybe we thought we were in the right direction, but now after seeing it all clearly laid out in front of us, we got to change our strategy inside of our business?
It's a really great question. What's really interesting is a lot of what our models is built off of is broker behaviors. And behaviors can be how quickly do you respond to seasonality? If seasonality is delayed or early, like what's your typical response time? Do you usually leave money on the table? How do you buy in a market you've never bought in before? A tight market, a loose market, what does that look like? There's also stuff where we kind of help understand if you're receiving the same load every week, but you're only building it the day before because it's an easy load to duplicate, and then you're posting it the day before, your margin is going to be a lot different than if you gave yourself 2 days. But there's some where we've showed them there's like a sweet spot as to when to cover their loads and when to tender it out to their carriers. Too far out, we've showed a couple brokers, your bounce rate is super high. You're paying more when it's this far out, which is fine if it's a shipper that has really high KPIs and you know that going into it, and that you can't take that risk with a cheaper carrier that may have first come first serve. But there's just different ways that we've shown them the behaviors and way they build their loads, when they post them, cover them, the data entry point of things. We're showing them more so, you buy really well in this region based on these reps. Here's what we've seen as a common denominator based on these reps. So it's more so the behaviors inside of their business that we can say, you should duplicate these efforts, or you need to take a deeper dive into these. We're also like to the point of data, every single broker I've ever spoken to is like, we don't have strong data. Nobody does. And that's probably why part of our reporting suite is to give you a report that shows you kind of what that data ingestion looks like. So if there's some where you have like a fat finger slip and your out time is like 3 days before your in time, that's not quality data, but we're going to kind of flag that to you. We're going to show you if there's a single customer where the same load every week has bad data in it, someone's probably duplicating the load. It's not good data. Let's help you figure that out. We're showing you outliers in your model where if you guys can just change a few little things, that's going to give us better data to better understand your costs and help you understand your accuracy a bit more. So it's all driven by behaviors. Some really interesting ones, kind of like you buy really well here, here's your power lane, stuff that they didn't really expect because they just didn't have a place to aggregate the data and understand it, which has been used to say like, hey, sales, let's start a sales blitz and target these areas. Let's, this is going to be a better place to acquire a customer because we're going to perform better, or we're buying at the lower end of the market so we can be a bit more competitive here. So there's a number of different use cases for it.
Now, you're bringing up a lot of great points, and it's like really how we operate internally. So I'm completely biased here when I say this, but again, you guys, I actually do the job we're talking about here. So this is a real proof case scenario about working freight too early. Our general rule of thumb, if our core carriers, so we always go out there and try and build core carriers. Like we have our top 5 for almost every lane out there. We hit them up first. We'll give them all the leeway in the world on like a weekend. Like as soon as we get that tender, we hit them up immediately. If they are unable to pick it up and we have to work it, no more than 48 hours in advance are we going to try and secure capacity for that load. And it has everything to do with the bounce rate that Carly's talking about there. There's too much other stuff that can happen that a driver might not get loaded. He might get delayed. Like I want to talk to those guys who are like, no, I'm delivering Wednesday. I'll be empty Wednesday afternoon. I can pick up for you first thing Thursday morning. I want to have those conversations to, again, minimize it. It doesn't remove it, but it like really does minimize that fall off and that bounce that Carly's talking about there. And then it's just those little tweaks inside of your business that make a world of a difference. You're talking about targeting customers there. That's one thing. And it's really tough, you guys, when you're building a book of business for scratch, or you might not have a lot of consistent freight out there. But after you start growing with some of your customers and your volume starts to increase, what Carly's describing there of targeted selling is essential for you to grow. It is essential. Go out there and hammer those markets that you perform strong in, because the conversation is so different with your prospects when you're out there and you're telling them, hey, we only run between Florida and the Carolinas and stuff like that. And we only run in the Southwest region, primarily Southern Cal, Southern Nevada, Utah, Arizona. It is a completely different conversation when you're out there. And again, back to my original talking point about having core carriers, a lot of the best carriers out there, you guys, run a region. All right. Like a lot of the guys we work with here out of Arizona, they only do Utah, Colorado, New Mexico, Nevada. That's it. They won't touch California. And we go out there and we're like, hey, we're going into this market, and this market. Now let's dump our sales efforts into those markets. It's a completely different conversation. And it's a complete mindset shift when you're going out there, as opposed to revenue at all costs, as opposed to strategic business development. And that's really where you need to sit.
Yeah, totally agree.
Carly, we could go for another hour, but you got a day job. And I feel like I'm going to have you back on sooner than later for sure, because I feel like we just started scratching the surface about talking about the data and having that tell a story out there. But how does anybody reach out to you guys at Transfix to find out more about what you or anybody on your team has going on?
Yeah, by all means, please reach out to me. It's Carly Gunby at transfix.io. You can find me on LinkedIn. Our sales guys, Thomas Keppel and Brent Tyler, are also phenomenal and available. They're actually going to be in Atlanta this Thursday. We're doing a happy hour with Freight Route Movement at New Realm Brewery. So if you are in the market and around, please stop by and hang out and meet the crew.
Perfect. Carly, thank you so much for joining me. If you guys can't find Carly or Transfix out there, hit me up. I will gladly put you guys in contact with them. But that's going to be it for today, ladies and gentlemen. And then you did have one more thing you wanted to plug here, Carly.
I do. Thanks. Yeah. So we are kicking off our first annual Freight Fantasy Football League. It's going to be open to anybody within the freight industry. And we are asking for donations if you would like to play or you so feel led. And the donations benefit the St. Christopher's Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that benefits truck drivers when, there's sudden shuttering of companies, or maybe they're out of work due to health concerns or health reasons. And so it's a really fun league. It's a knockout league. It's, like I said, it's free to sign up, but we encourage donations. It's a knockout league. You pick the 2 teams that play every week, who's going to win. You can't pick the same team twice. If you love competition, which what Freight Broker doesn't, and a little smack talk, by all means, please join us and have some fun.
Perfect. Carly, that sounds awesome. That will be it for today, though, you guys. Hit Carly up about this, you guys. We want to donate. St. Christopher Fund is a great organization out there, you guys. Donate into that. Even if you don't want to join fantasy football, donate into the St. Christopher Fund. It's a great organization as a whole. But that will be it for today, you guys. As always, if you got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. And if you're feeling really ambitious, rank the show on iTunes and Spotify, because if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.
Came back with a bang, window down, yelling out money, anything. Ayy, ooh, got the foot on the gas, pedal to the metal.